بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الصدق يهدي إلى البر وإن البر يهدي إلى الجنة وإن الرجل ليصدق حتى يكون صديقا وإن الكذب يهدي إلى الفجور وإن الفجور يهدي إلى النار وإن الرجل لا يكذب حتى يكتب عند الله كذابا وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. The last portion of this hadith, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh has narrated this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that verily, indeed, lying leads towards al-fujur, towards sin, vice, and this al-fujur, sins and vice, leads a person towards Jahannam. In this we discussed lying against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having this belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having certain attributes, certain qualities, certain form like a human being. Or a person, he changes the meanings of the Quran Sharif, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, claiming to have received revelation or prophethood from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making something halal which was actually haram, or vice versa, making something haram which is halal, or denying his complete existence. Or a person narrates a dream, he makes up a dream that in my dream I saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying this or that. So these are lying against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lying against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is another type, where a person, he refers or relates something to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said this or he did this, whereas Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam hasn't, he did not say this or he did not do this. Or certain beliefs about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or fabricating a hadith, and also misrepresenting the actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded to do this whereas he hasn't, or making something up about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's something that wasn't even befitting him. A person say that Prophet did this or he said this. So these are the lying against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all know the verse وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ وَأَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that those who lie against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will never be successful. مَتَاعٌ قَلِيلٌ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. They may gain some worldly benefit in this world, but that's very temporary, very short. Against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. He clearly says that whosoever lies against me, whosoever makes up a story about me, or refers something towards me which I have not said or did, then فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Let him make his own seating, make him his own end result and his final destination in the fire of Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from both types of lie against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the third type of lying is against a human being, against another person, another group, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this could lead to many different types of sins. It could lead to many different types of sins, for example, accusation, assumptions, and also slandering, humiliation, and many other sins that it will lead towards. And one category of lying against another human being is, for example, we gave of Hadith Mufti Taqi Uthmani Damat Barakatum, when somebody mentioned that he had forced a document for him to have the extended sick leave. So this is also against a human being. A person, he forges signatures or makes up a false document for certain benefit. So this involving other human beings or other groups, other institutes or other businesses, this is also falls into this category. So you're taking advantage of the other being, misleading the other person, your duties and all of these things. Now one category of lying also which falls into this is where a person, he makes a lie, or he puts a show in order to laugh, in order to make people laugh. And whatever he's saying, there's nothing concrete behind it. There's no evidence, there's no proof. Whatever he's doing is also false, as we have in comedy shows. Most of the comedy shows are just for making people laugh. And most of the time, there's no evidence, there's no background to it, there's nothing truth to it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated in Tirmidhi Sharif, he said that وَيْلُ لِلَّذِينَ يُحَدِّث, woe unto that being who speaks, who says something, فَيَكْذِبْ, and his speech is of a lie. His speaking is lie. And why does he do it? لِيُضْحِكَ بِهِ الْقَوْمِ, so that he may make the qawm and the people laugh. Just to make them laugh. وَيْلٌ لَهُ وَيْلٌ لَهُ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the beginning he says woe unto him, destruction for this person, and then at the end emphasized again the destruction for such person, destruction for such person. And this is quite common where you'll have a female Muslim actor or Muslim female actor, and stand-up comedy and all other types of comedy shows. A lot of the time is just to waste time and just to entertain the ears for a short period. And sometimes it leads to backbiting, it leads to slandering, and just defaming somebody else and taking a joke out of somebody else. So many wrong things happens in that one gathering, in that one show. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is warning us that we should not be involved in such acts, that where we lie, we put a show up just in order to make people lie. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, remember, our deen, our religion is moderate religion. It's not dead, it's not a dull religion. Our religion is always moderate and it has always humor to it. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at times would make a joke. It's not that he never smiled. It's not that he never cracked a joke. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also had it. But there was always something behind it. There will only be a reason behind it. And there will always be some truth behind what he had to say. So you can be humble and at the same time have some humor as well. But it should be within the limits. It shouldn't be a lie. It shouldn't be a joke. It shouldn't be taking the mick out of somebody. How he looks or how he talks or how he walks or nothing like that, because then there will be it'll create disunity and enmity and so many other wrong will result to it. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is highlighting here that a person shouldn't be involved in this. Now last week we mentioned that lying itself, obviously, as the hadith says, is evil, is wrong. Lying leads us towards sin, and sin leads us towards Jahannam and towards the fire of Jahannam. However, the ulama explain in the light of the Quran and the hadith especially, where there may be certain occasions where you don't exactly go in the direction of lying, try to use another strategy, try to use another method. So hadith explained that there are maybe 3 occasions where a person may say something which is not the reality. One is between husband and the wife. Between husband and the wife, just to keep the love and the unity and the bond between them. For example, the food was cooked and there may be salt missing, there may be some spice missing, or it may not be exactly to the taste. So the wife asks the husband. So the husband, obviously, just to keep that love and keep that bond, he could say something that the food was nice. So even though he may have not liked the food, he may have not liked the taste of the food, he may be here in one way lying, but the reason for that was to keep that unity, keep that bond, keep that love between them. So if there was another strategy, if there was another method, which was actually exactly the truth, then a person could have used that. But for some reasons, just to be following the truth, it could lead to problems. So between husband and the wife, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains to keep that bond between them, they could, obviously, you don't go extreme and in every occasion you lie. It doesn't mean that every occasion you come up lie and, no. It says there, that explanation is given that if you need to, try the other methods first, where you're honest and you're truthful, but sometime you may need to do something or say something which is not the reality. That's one. Another time where we may have to follow this step, take this step is in the time of battle, or war, that where we have an idea that if we clearly mention the plan, that information could be leaked and it could lead to the hands of the enemies. So it could cause harm. So at that time you may say something which is not the reality. For example, okay, we're going in the right direction, going in that direction. But actually we're not going to go in exactly in that direction, we were going to go in that direction. So in that way is the right direction because we're going to be following that direction. So in a certain way that we may seem like we may be lying, and so in the time of battle or a war, we may be permissible if you can use a correct, truthful method, strategy, then you follow that. But if for some reason you may need to, use certain words which may seem like is a lie, is also permissible in here. And the third one is to settle between two individuals, between two groups. There's a fallout, there's a dispute between two people. So to reconcile, to bring them back together, one person goes to the person A and he said that, the person B is very happy about you, he's been praising you, he's been talking good about you, and he's forgiven whatever has happened between you two, he's forgiven you. Whereas the person B has not even said this. So then he goes to the person B and he says that person A is also doing the same thing. That the person A is ready to forgive you, he wants you to become friends again, he wants to forget and forgive. So to reconcile, to bring two people back together, to bring two groups together, to bring two families together, as long as the individual has correct methods in place and has an idea how to do it, then in this manner, in this time also, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to settle the dispute, to settle the argument and to stop the disunity and to bring them together. A person in this case, it could be permissible or it could be allowed for the person to say something which is not the reality. So these are the three cases where we are able to use something or say something which is not true. So one was between husband and the wife, the second one was in the time of battle or a war, and the third one is to be reconciled between two individuals. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that وَإِنَّ الْكَذْبَ يَهْدِي لِلْفُجُورِ وَإِنَّ الْفُجُورَ يَهْدِي إِلَى النَّارِ. That lying takes a person towards sins, and sinning takes a person towards Jahannam. Now, towards Jahannam, that's Allah protect us from the fire of Jahannam and not take us towards in that direction, rather take us into the correct direction. But that's the end result. That's in Jahannam is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever the day of judgment takes place. So then a person in this world, he tends to forget and he has a very short sight. What happens to him is that I've been lying, I've been deceiving, I've been committing X, Y, and Z sins, but nothing happened to me. Nothing has happened to me. I don't see any punishment coming in towards me. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi, he has brought 20 harms of effects of the 20 harms of sins. 20 effects of sins. The fire of Jahannam, obviously, that's the last. Allah protect us, that's the last thing. But before that, even in this world, a person, he may not face the punishment immediately. Allah doesn't do that. Allah doesn't punish a person, especially the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of the beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're never going to be facing the punishment as an ummah in this world. However, there are certain harms. So he says, number one, the prevention of knowledge. The prevention of knowledge. When a person has habit of committing sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prevent him from the correct knowledge of the Quran and the Hadith and the Deen. He will not have the correct understanding of the Quran, he will not have the correct understanding of the Deen. Number two, the prevention of sustenance. The prevention of sustenance. Where every person is working 8 hours a day, 30, 40 hours a week, just to get in order to provide for himself and have certain luxuries in his life. But when a person has sins in his life, these sort of luxuries and all of these will become difficult for him. It will become difficult for this individual. Third thing, the prevention of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that we need to think, that we may not get the punishment, but then how is our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we able to carry out the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? A person said to his shaykh that, I've been committing, I've been lying, and nothing has happened. So he asked him to check how many namazis are you praying in a day? How often are you praying them? Are you able to pray them with the salah, with the jama'at or not, etc.? So this also is the harm of sin. Number 4, sins weakens the heart and the body. Now this could also mean physically or spiritually as well, that a person could physically become weak, the heart can become weak, or the body can also become weak. Number 5, sins reduce the lifespan and destroys any blessings. It destroys the lifespan. Now this literally could mean it destroys and reduces the lifespan, or it could be that he lives in this world for 60, 70 years, but at a very young age, because of the sinful life that he's been living, is bankrupt, or he's been diagnosed with certain illness and certain cancer that he's not able to do anything after that. So he's living for 60, 70 years, but a good portion of his life he was unable to achieve anything, he was unable to do anything as a normal individual would have. Like this, sin weakens, each sin is a legacy of a nation that is destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also it is a cause of the servant being held by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. Another harm that's mentioned here is that it corrupts the intellect, corrupts the understanding. When sin increases, then the heart becomes sealed. When sins increase, the heart becomes sealed. Then the light of guidance doesn't come towards that person, towards the heart. Then Quran, the light of Quran, the nur of good a'mals, the inclination towards good deeds was also blocked, and that doesn't come towards this individual. And there are many other sins mentioned here by Imam Qayyim rahmatullahi alayh. So the conclusion of this is that we shouldn't be deceived by this, that I have been sinning in my life and I have not faced any sort of punishment, and I've been living and I'm still alive here, I'm still walking, I'm still eating and drinking, I'm still breathing, but nothing has happened to me. So Imam Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned that check these few things, or these few things are not something that in your life or not. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah we'll conclude the hadith next week and move on to the next hadith. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to bring these points into our life, and as the hadith says, that be truthful, as truthful will lead us towards goodness, and goodness will lead us towards Jannat. Be staying away from lying, as lying takes a person towards sins, and the sins leads towards Jahannam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the correct understanding and the ability to be truthful in all matters, in our actions, in our sayings, in verbal, in all aspects. Just to conclude, our senior Imam, once he purchased certain item from our local grocery shop. Now when he came home, he looked at the receipt and he looked at the item, and he thought that the item description is not matching on the receipt. So he said to me that what you do is you take this item back to the grocery shop and take this receipt back, make sure that the description and the cost that's written there is matching, because I think that the name of this item doesn't match this the receipt, whatever it says in there. So it's possible that the cost might be different as well. So he was that cautious that he actually made me go back and make sure that I verified that the receipt and the item is matching, because on the shelf something else was written there. So he thought it was this, but when he was scanned, he didn't notice at that time. When he came home, he noticed and he looked at the receipt that there's something different here. The cost is not, the price is written there is different to the item name, and he actually made me go back and make sure that it's got the right item and the right price that's been paid for as well. So like this, if a person has, as the ulama explained, that when a person has truthfulness in his life, it will bring taqwa in his life. He will become conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because of this quality of truthfulness. Now when a person becomes conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that will always take him towards piety and goodness, and that will always take him towards Jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our gathering and ability to bring these practices into our life. Allahumma ameen. Subhanallah bihamdi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك